Is it okay, Upendra? I think, yeah, I'm on the screen.
Yeah, so visible screen
Okay,
is.
thank you. Good morning, all friends again. Thank you for joining me on Masterclass 26. This is on certain important models of organizational buying, namely Webster and Win model. Let's examine further. Just to recapitulate what we have discussed so far is what is organizational buying. It is the process by which businesses and institutions, or even government organizations, purchase goods and services for again reproduction, resale, or maybe for internal use. That's why we say they have the derived demand for it. So they purchase from outside and make some product or service and again deliver the same to the consumers. That's why industries buying processes are relatively complicated when compared to that of final consumer buying. So let's examine some key differences of organizational buying vis-a-vis consumer buying. In case of consumer buying, it's more rational and systematic. But in case of organizational buying, in case of consumer buying, it's more rational and systematic. But in case of consumer buying, that is highly emotional and may not be systematic. And organization buying involves multiple decision makers because there are procurement managers, there are users, and there are top management for approvals and all. But in case of consumer buying, there is only one, either individual or family buying. And in case of organization buying, there are large volumes are being traded because it's a bulk buying as such, and moreover, it's a long-term contract. But in case of consumer buying, it's only a one-time purchase or maybe repeat purchases may be there, but it's not that kind of a large volume purchases. And there's no point in long-term contracts as well. So those are the differences as we have already mentioned earlier also. So, and again, the importance that is associated with organizational buying behavior is we have already talked earlier. It's a B2B model. That means it helps businesses target B2B customers effectively. For example, if you take the case of Amazon, Amazon buys from other suppliers. It's a B2B scenario, right? Tata Cars buy steel from XYZ manufacturer. It's a B2B transaction. And second is support sales and marketing strategies because organization buying behavior, organizational buying is a very careful exercise. If you fail in that buying processes, your sales and marketing strategies get disturbed. So you need to answer your supply chain logistics. Third one is it influences supply chain and procurement decision. We have just now told you. Because if you take proper care on organization buying, then only there's a chance for you to manage your supply chains. And there must be appropriate steps taken for procurement decisions. If you do not take procurement decisions effectively, then your supplies get disturbed. Once the supplies get disturbed, there is a production cycle disturbance. If there is a production cycle disturbance, you can't manufacture the final product to be delivered on time to the right customer at the right place. So these are all the issues with reference to organizational buying. So let's now examine this model in particular, Webster and Win model. This is developed by Frederick E. Webster and Joram Wint in 1972. Let's examine what is this. This model focuses on a complex and multi-dimensional process of organizational buying. So this model identifies four key influencing factors. What are they? Let's examine. According to this model, the major components can be classified as four. One is environmental factors, second is organizational factors, third is interpersonal factors, and fourth one is individual factors. What are they in detail? Let's examine. We now going for a detailed breakdown of this model in detail. Let's see. One is what are environmental factors and what are the key elements in these environmental factors. Environment means either it can be internal or external factors. So most of the time, when you talk about environment, we talk about external forces influencing buying processes. What are the external forces of the company that try to influence your buying processes here? One is there are certain key elements when we talk about environmental factors. Let's examine what are they. Economic conditions. That means the economy outside will definitely influence the situation, economic situation outside can definitely influence your buying processes. For example, there's an inflationary tendency. When there's an inflationary scenario, the prices of the raw materials go up, and you have to take some decisions here in the process of buying your raw material. Same time happens if you're for buying from outside the country. The exchange rate fluctuations will be there. So it's an international economic factor. So based on exchange rate fluctuations, you have to take quick decisions of importing the raw material from other countries. The second is technological developments. So what type of technological developments that are taking place must be properly examined, because that's based on the technological developments. Suppliers will alter their products to be supplied here. So you need to understand the technological developments concerning your company operation, your industry operation as such. Third is political and legal regulations. And you need to, because you are a law abiding citizen, all companies should be law abiding citizens. There are certain business legislations and there is a constitution, and governments will change, right? Governments will change a lot of regulations. For example, all of a sudden, you're banned for using X product or Y product as a raw material. You're supposed to buy only environment friendly. You were supposed to use environment friendly products. I mean, as raw material or as supplies. So like that, there will be, for example, there will be change in the political factor, political parties as such. You might have seen what has happened when earlier government in Andhra Pradesh and new government in Andhra Pradesh. A lot of changes, when political parties change, and how the what you call the legal procedures change, how the tenders etc. will undergo change, tender fixations and different types of projects. How the state governments alter the rules, so these will have an impact. So the political and legal regulations also will have an impact on our supply chain. And fourth one is competitive forces. Yes, because there are a lot of suppliers. When there are a lot of suppliers, you are supposed to better negotiate with the suppliers. There are a lot of competitive forces. If you fail to negotiate properly with your suppliers, you are gone, because your prices will be, I mean, the supplies, your price for the suppliers will be higher, supplies will be higher, and accordingly your cost of production goes on increasing. So there are important factors to be examined here. The key elements are economic conditions, technological developments inside out of the company, and then political and legal regulations when the governments change, and business legislations amendments are there, and competitive forces that alter the entire scenario. For example, a construction company delaying equipment purchases due to rising interest rates in the economy. For example, there's an increase in the interest rates, and the construction company wants to delay the equipment purchases. And what may happen here? If you delay the equipment purchases, your projects get delayed, because your problem is interest rate, hike in the interest rate, and equipment gets costlier. So if you buy that at particular higher rate of interest, equipment gets costlier, and the cost of the project also goes up. Okay, that's one. Suppose if you delay the equipment purchases, then of course again there are project delays, and accordingly the cost of the project also will increase. So anyway, this issue. So that's how the environmental factors try to influence your supply chain decisions, and accordingly your final outcome. And then of course is the organizational factors. That's the internal story. That's internal company policies, structures, and strategies importing buying decisions. Because no company is a constant endeavor, right? You see, you'll be taking a lot of changes in your internal administration, internal structures, right? And there are a lot of internal strategies that, because, for example, the internal management may change, or your CMD may be transferred, or new CMD, new top management have come in, or there's a merger consolidations. A lot of factors. I'm just mentioning only one. So the key elements include: one, company size and structure. All of a sudden, you may downsize the company, or you may increase the size of the company and company operations as such. So the company size and structure will also influence the way in which you operate to buy the material. So your supply chain decisions undergo change. And the second is objectives and strategies. These will also undergo change. All of a sudden, you are going for environment friendly strategies and all, and as such, the entire process undergoes change. So you may opt for new objective, new strategy, whatever it is, depending upon the company policy changes. That again influences your supply chain management decisions. And third one is procurement policies and budgets. You may be suffering from budget constraints. You don't have that kind of a budget, or you may have a surplus budget. So your procurement policies undergo change. You may say, no, no, we don't want to import from outside. It's very costly. We can't, because of the exchange rates are going up. So we have only domestic. You depend only on our domestic purchases. So that's how the procurement policies and the budgets you have will also have an influence on your supply chain logistics. So, for example, Apple Incorporation has a strict supplier selection process. Yes, normally any company for that matter, requiring compliance with ethical sourcing policies before signing the contracts. And we have already talked about in the earlier sessions number of times. Apple is known for its environment-friendly approaches of sourcing the raw material supplies. So they, before signing contracts, they go in for very strict compliance of ethical sourcing policies. They don't entertain any unfriendly environmental related products as such. So that's how it goes. So company policies, company structure, objectives and strategies, all will be influencing the procurement policies. And this internal story, internal company policies, structures, and other strategies will also impact decisions. Then interpersonal factors, yes, because most of the time, uh, much goes in a decision making unit, because there, we have already said, there are different stakeholders in the process. There are different stakeholders. The decision making unit is all the more very important, and it exerts a lot of influence here. Let's examine. I have just now told you there's a change in power dynamics and authority. Your head of purchase department is transferred, or you have invited new CEO, new top management. This is an internal factor, and moreover interpersonal factor, because what may happen is the decision to be taken is by different stakeholders. So your top management, your lower level management, etc., must come together. In case where there's a change in power dynamics and change in authority, people decision making unit, texture of the decision making unit changes. New people, now new people have to come together, discuss and all. This is a decision making unit, interpersonal factor. Second is communication flow. For example, if there is a free flow of communication without obstacles, without any hiccups in the process, everything goes very well. Suppose for any reason the communication blockades are there, and the people are not freely, interacting together because of variety of reasons, then again the problem comes. Third is conflicts. It's quite but natural that where there are people, there are conflicts, and it can be intraperson conflict or interperson conflict, intergroup conflicts will be there. In interpersonal and intergroup conflicts, you need to sit down calmly and sort out the conflicts. Conflicts must be resolved. So these are the factors like power dynamics, change, and authority. communication flows, alterations, whatever, and conflicts emerging. These are all interpersonal factors where people get together, discuss, and this kind of interpersonal factors float. And that's again another important a factor, a set of factors which influence your supply chain logistics decisions. For example, in a hospital procurement team, the finance department prefers cost effective medical equipment, while doctors emphasize quality and technology. See this problem. Procurement team says we have to buy cost effective medical equipment. Doctors who use this equipment, because user is also very important right now. So what happens, doctors emphasize quality and technology. No, 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 not, it's not the question of cost effectiveness. We have to buy good quality product and high tech oriented products and all that. For example, they are buying, say, MRI equipment or X-ray equipment or whatever. So this is the difference. This is the interpersonal factor. See the difference between the doctors or users and the procurement team suggesting something. So this is what we call interpersonal factors influencing. Then about individual factors. Yeah. And it can be influential decision maker, can be a CEO for that matter, or can be a CPO, chief procurement officer, who is heading the purchase department straight away. Whatever may be the consultations here and there, people involved in decision making, but ultimately it is the chief procurement officer, the purchase officer, who takes critical decisions. So the individual factor means here personal characteristics of decision makers that influence purchase decisions. For example, the key decision maker here is chief procurement officer, purchase head. He must have sufficient experience and knowledge. If he does not have sufficient experience and knowledge of reading the market, supplier scenario, supplier evaluation, everything will go out of gear. So the first key element here is how good is the chief procurement officer, the head of purchase, with reference to experience and knowledge. Second is risk appetite, because all business decisions are supposed to be risk driven. Some executives are risk averse. They do not have risk appetite, we call it. See, in business propositions, we say where there is risk, there is a profit. You may lose, you may gain. So trying a new equipment, trying a new material is a risky factor. So if your chief procurement officer, purchase department team having a risk appetite to try for new product supplies, then of course things may go good. Of course, there is a risk again. You may go good or you may go bad also. But again, what I say is this is again a key element which influences your supply chain management decisions. Third is motivation and personal preferences, because we have seen, the likes and dislikes of the purchase department counts a lot here. Highly biased. You may have a personal preference. For example, I'm a purchase officer and I prefer XYZ supplier when compared to ABC supplier. Always I want to take XYZ supplies. I just disown ABC. This is my personal preference. I am motivated. Sometimes there may be corruption also, kickbacks. That's how the government works there. In case of governments, when they tenders and all, they're big contractors, bribing the government officials, getting the contract, and there's a bias. So like that in corporates also, sometimes it may happen that the it's an individual factor that the chief procurement officer or the purchase people who are critical are motivated by certain things, like, and they may have some personal preferences to have. So for example, Tesla, who previously worked in aerospace industry, may prefer supplies with advanced engineering capabilities. They want to change, maybe because of a variety of, it's an individual factor. Earlier they worked with aerospace industry and they may prefer supplies with advanced engineering capabilities. Tesla wants to do that, so they change. It's an individual factor, because the chief procurement officer at Tesla who previously worked with aerospace industry, so because of that influence, that experience, he will be taking decisions as such. So that's how it goes. Now then, what are the stages of organization buying process normally? Of course, we have already talked about it. Let's examine how it is integrated with this model. The stages of organization buying processes. First, of course, is problem recognition. Second one is need description and specification. Then, of course, you have to go for search for suppliers. Then fourth, proposal solicitation, ask them to supply, ask them to give a complete proposal. And then five is supplier selection based on different things. And six is order routine specification, right? You place an order. And then seven is your performance review. It's a very critical seven stage buying process. So let us examine in detail what are they. Applying Webster and Win model to buying processes is something important for us to examine. Environmental factors affect problem recognition definitely, because see, the market trends ultimately count a lot, from where you need to buy and which type of product we need to buy around. Organizational factors impact need description and specification. Yes, you have certain organizational factors coming in the way that impact the need description and specification factors. Then interpersonal factors, like who will be taking decisions and all that, people to come together in purchase department, including top management, users and all, they come together. So these internal factors play a role in supplier selection, who is to be picked up for buying. Then individual factors influence final decision making. Individual factor means it's the purchaser who is taking a critical decision to purchase finally. That's a final decision making exercise. Let's examine one or two case studies here. See the Boeing supplier selection process, how it goes. Boeing is an airline company. Boeing, a leading aerospace company, follows a meticulous supplier selection process. Let's examine how they take care of different factors which will be impacting their buying of supplies. First is environmental factor. So economic downturn earlier during 90s, leading to cost cutting strategies. You might be noticing this, the economic downturn, a deep depression during 90s. So this is an environmental factor. You have to apply brakes to your purchasing decisions, because you can't bear, because there's a economic downturn. Second is organizational factors. So what they did is they gone in for very stringent quality requirements. This is an organizational factor. They specify to all suppliers, we want a good quality product. So they have formulated strict, stringent quality requirements. That's an organizational factor. Then, of course, interpersonal factors are, we have already talked to you. Who will be parties in the process of decision making? Yes, of course, engineers who use the product, and procurement teams who will be inviting bids or suppliers, supply proposals, and all that. So it's a matter between engineers and procurement teams, how the chemistry works, how do they come together. This is called interpersonal factors influencing supplier selection process. Then, of course, individual factors. That's who is the CEO, the CEO's risk appetite for new technology. Are they interested in accepting new technology or not? The people who do not have risk appetite, they don't invite new technology, because they are fearful about new technology. If they invite new technology, there will be a lot of changes taking place and all that, and that becomes a fear complex for them. So what may happen is individual factors also influence your buying decision. Like for example, CEO risk appetite for new technology, they did not go in for it. So what is the outcome of all these things? See, there's a shift from traditional suppliers to innovative aerospace startups for lightweight materials. So ultimately, Boeing has substituted their traditional suppliers with innovative aerospace startups. they enter into contact with the startups, aerospace startups. So because they supply for lightweight materials and all that. So the reasons may be very many why they or do this way, that way, because it's a very clear case of how different factors influence your buying decisions in industrial buying. Let's examine another case of Walmart's procurement strategy. You know, Walmart is a largest retail outlet. They don't have products of their own. They buy from outside, store it, and sell it. Right? It's a world's largest retailer. How they optimize supply chain efficiency? Let us examine. First is environmental factors. There's a lot of price fluctuation in raw materials. That's a problem for them in order to procure X, Y, Z, because they get large sums and they repack the products and store it and then sell. Then organizational factors are just in time inventory system. They want inventory management to be absolutely clear, because when the customers walk in, suppose you may say that we don't have that product. It goes out of gear because it's a big store. So the very big, largest, world's largest retailer. So you want to clearly know the inventory system, clearly know which product is in supply, which product is in short supply. This is an organizational factor which influences your buying decision. Third is interpersonal factors. Yes, you have collaboration between suppliers and logistics teams. See, store managers are somebody, and logistics teams are worried about how the market supplies are guaranteed or not in the market. So collaboration takes place between the suppliers and your logistics teams working for our Walmart. If there is no collaboration, then everything goes out of gear. The logistics teams must clearly understand the supplies and tell the suppliers that we want this product, this supplies at this point of time. So the dialogue, discussion, collaboration, etc., is an interpersonal factor. Then about individual factors are those people who are working for taking decisions there. Executives prioritizing cost over brand loyalty. They don't bother about brand loyalty. Or some people may be more in favor of brand loyalty. Some may be in more in favor of cost considerations. It depends. Or the executive orientation is important. So that's what we call individual factors. So, what is the outcome of all these things when we talk about Walmart's procurement strategy? There's an increased efficiency and cost saving, helping maintain competitive pricing of the products which are placed in that retail outlet. So, that's the thing. So, when we talked about seven different step oriented Webster and Win model, let's examine what are the strengths and weaknesses here. Of course, every model has its own strengths and it has its own limitations. Let's examine this model of Webster and Win. It is very comprehensive and applicable across industries. It is stated that the model can be applied without any hiccups in any industry for that matter. That's the extraordinary advantage. Second is it accounts for multiple decision making influences. We have seen a 7-step model as such. So whoever takes decision, whatever level the decisions are taken, and all these are responsibility oriented. It accounts for multiple decision making influences, and everybody is involved in this procurement strategy. Some of the weaknesses, of course, as that of any other model, as it's very complex and difficult to quantify, because we have said there is interpersonal, this thing is there, organization factors are there, economic factors are there, decision making things are there, individual factors are there. When we said a lot of factors influencing the purchase decision, a lot of people involved in, so there can be a delay or whatever. So that's the weakness. It is highlighted here is very complex and difficult to quantify each stage and all that. And it does not consider digital transformation in procurement, because for what we now consider here is now on e-commerce platforms and all. So there is nowhere there's a mention in Webster and Win model that digitalization aspect of it. So this is another important problem with regard to that. So before we close here, what are the implications of this model? Can we apply this or not? Yes, of course. The practical applications of this model is it helps business to business marketers tailor strategies for different decision makers. It's very good here when we talk about business to business marketers, like X business and Y business to be together. So this model works. It helps B2B marketers. Both are, for example, the Walmart versus its suppliers, Tesla versus its steel makers, whatever, I mean, steel suppliers, all these. I mean, B2B marketers tailor their strategies for different decision makers. Second one is guides companies structuring their procurement processes very well, because we need to understand what are the 7 step process and all. Care is taken at each every step, so that there can be a very fruitful practical approach involved in taking procurement decisions. And third is it aids in predicting buying behavior under different external conditions, because we start with environmental factors and with individual factors as such. So we take a lot of factors into consideration, different external conditions which influence the supplies as such. So it helps us to predict buyer behavior as such. So the final key learnings what we can have from this model is, note that organizational buying is not that easy, just like that of consumer final buying. Organization buying is a multi-dimensional and dynamic process. Lot of people involved. Please note, in supply chain management, logistics is not a simple affair. Lot of people. It's not simply procurement teams. We have a lot of people working, and there are users, there are decision makers, a lot of people. So we need to consider all into careful analysis of what all people opine on this raw material or supplies that are to be bought. So organization buying is a multi-dimensional and dynamic process, and this model is widely used in B2B marketing and procurement, because all the people involved, uh, even suppliers also have got an advantage here, because they are the principal parties in the process of procurement, as a supplier, significant suppliers as such. Then, of course, when we talk about importance of understanding, it has got all real world applications. There are a lot of influencing factors. Care is to be taken. Of course, it is clumsy. We understand it is clumsy and complicated, but at the same time, given the complete understanding and execution of the different steps in the process, it goes without saying that the key learning here is it highlights the importance of understanding of all influencing factors, 4, 5, 6, 7 influencing factors as such. So that's the discussion on this model